Don't be afraid of new paths. See them as opportunities to explore and grow. On a mist-covered mountaintop, an ancient temple nestled among the clouds. Inside the serene main hall, an elderly monk sat in meditation, eyes gently closed, hands moving over prayer beads. Suddenly, a knock broke the silence. The heavy wooden door creaked open, and a middle-aged man stepped inside, his face full of worry. Bowing deeply, he knelt with hands clasped in front of him. "Master," he began, voice trembling, "I am facing a new path in my life. I feel very anxious and unsure if I have the strength to overcome it. I have come seeking your guidance." The monk slowly opened his eyes, his compassionate gaze falling on the man. He smiled gently and said, "Every new path is filled with unknowns, much like an unexplored forest. Yet it is this very mystery that brings new opportunities, new experiences, and new lessons. Think of it as an adventure, a journey of self-discovery." The man looked up at the monk, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. "But Master, I fear the difficulties and challenges of this new path. I'm afraid I will falter and lose my way." The monk placed a hand on the man's shoulder, his voice calm and soothing like a gentle stream. Life is a series of ever-changing paths. No path is smooth, and each is fraught with obstacles. But it is these very challenges that forge your will and sharpen your spirit. Consider them as whetstones that make you stronger and more resilient. The man nodded, though he still seemed hesitant. Seeing this, the monk continued, "A new path may make you feel lost and lonely, but you are not alone. You have family, friends, and those who love and support you. More importantly, you have yourself and the hidden strength within you. Believe in yourself and your abilities. As long as you do not give up, you will overcome any hardship." The monk's words were like a light illuminating the man's soul, dispelling the fog of fear and worry. He felt a new surge of energy and a strong belief in himself. He bowed deeply in gratitude, then stood up, his face much more peaceful. He knew the new path ahead would not be easy, but he was ready to face it with optimism and a heart full of hope. Life is a continuous journey of change, with new paths always unfolding before us. Don't fear the unknown. See it as a chance to explore, learn, and grow. Trust in yourself and your hidden strengths. And remember, you are never alone on your journey. 2. Understanding impermanence to live responsibly and meaningfully. Buddha taught us about the nature of impermanence so that we could live with a sense of duty and responsibility toward our families and society. This teaching urges us not to be pessimistic, dismissive, or disheartened by the transient and fragile nature of life. There's a story in the Buddhist scriptures about a man who committed evil deeds throughout his life on earth. Upon his death, he was brought before King Yama, the judge of the dead. King Yama asked, "Why did you not perform good deeds on earth, instead committing so many evils that now you suffer here?" The man replied, "Lord, on earth, we need to plan our actions in advance. How could I possibly have done good deeds in time for my death, which came so suddenly?" King Yama laughed and asked, "Did you not see sickness and death around you on earth?" The man admitted, "Yes, I did." "Those were the warnings I sent," King Yama explained. "Did anyone escape old age, illness, or death?" "No," the man replied. "Then why didn't you prepare yourself by doing good deeds?" At that moment, a young soul sitting nearby protested to King Yama, "I must object, my lord. You were unfair. You sent many warnings to that old man, but none to me before my untimely death." King Yama chuckled and responded, "One simply has to open their eyes to see the fairness in my actions. I always send warnings, but not everyone pays attention." The young soul asked, "When did you send me a warning?" King Yama explained, Did you notice the young child across from your house who died in a traffic accident? Surely, if such a young one could die, so could older individuals. I am always fair and impartial. It's only that some choose to ignore the signs or persist in stubborn ways. Buddhism teaches that human life is inherently impermanent, as fleeting as a candle in the wind, extinguishable at any moment. Our bodies do not wait for old age or illness to die. Life can end any time for a myriad of reasons. Hence the saying, "Do not wait for old age to cultivate your spirit. Even in wild graves, the young are many." By understanding the impermanence of all things, we learn to appreciate and share love, striving not to become overly attached to our physical beings, which only leads to mutual suffering. The story above teaches us about the transient nature of human life. Remember, death is not the end, but merely a transformation. Depending on the karma we generate in this life, our future will unfold accordingly. Nothing in this world truly disappears. Everything transforms. By understanding impermanence, we can live more meaningfully, perform good deeds, and make our existence beneficial for ourselves and others both now and in the future. By living such a life, we can face death without fear or panic, departing with a rich legacy of deeds. Worldly possessions like money, jewelry, and property remain behind. Only our actions accompany us throughout life. Knowing this, as we face our final moments, we can depart in peace, without regret for anything of this world, including life itself. Life is short and impermanent. We must live responsibly, cultivate ourselves, and perform good deeds so we are not filled with regret when death arrives. Material things will not follow us. Only our actions will serve as the most valuable legacy. Let's live meaningfully, loving and sharing with those around us so that we can depart in peace and without regrets. 3. To succeed, know yourself well and persistently pursue the path you've chosen. A cold wind blew over the peak of Mount Nam, where Zen master Shitu Chikyan sat like an ancient statue, teaching Buddhist principles. Among his disciples, Hui Long harbored a burning desire to seek the truth. One day, Hui Long knelt before Shitu, his eyes full of determination. "Master, I want to go to Jiangxi to seek enlightenment from Zen master Mazu Daoyi." Shitu nodded slightly, a smile hinting at his understanding. "The path to enlightenment is yours to choose. Go and experience it." Hui Long traveled a long way to Jiangxi and knelt before Mazu, respectfully asking, "Master, I seek Buddhist wisdom." Mazu looked deeply into Hui Long's eyes and said, "The Buddha has transcended wisdom. Seeking wisdom makes you a demon." Stunned, Hui Lang felt as if he had been struck by lightning. Mazu continued, "Where are you from?" Hui Lang stammered, "I came from Mount Nam." Mazu frowned. "You come from Mount Nam, yet you neglect Shitu's compassion. You must return. Other places are not suitable for you." Disheartened, Hui Lang returned to Mount Nam, filled with doubt. He approached Shitu again. "Master, what is Buddha?" Shitu looked at Hui Lang, eyes penetrating. "You have no Buddha nature." Shocked, Hui Long protested. "Even insects and worms have Buddha nature. Why don't I?" Shitu smiled. "Because you are not an insect or worm." Hui Long, more confused, asked, "Does that mean I'm less than an insect or worm?" Shitu shook his head gently. "Because you do not dare to endure." Shitu's words struck like lightning in Hui Lang's mind. He realized he had been chasing distant ideals, forgetting to face himself and endure the trials on his spiritual journey. Hui Lang knelt, tears streaming down. "Master, I was wrong." Shitu lifted him up, eyes full of compassion. "You have found yourself." From then on, Hui Long stayed at Mount Nam, focusing on his practice. No longer chasing illusions, he concentrated on cultivating his mind and character, eventually achieving enlightenment and becoming a distinguished Zen master. The story of Zen master Huilang teaches us that to succeed in life, we must understand ourselves, trust the path we've chosen, and persistently pursue it. Don't chase distant dreams. Cherish what you have. Only by facing ourselves and enduring challenges can we achieve enlightenment and success. Life is impermanent, ever-changing. Only enlightenment is eternal. Cherish every moment and live fully to avoid regret when looking back.
If you like this video, please comment 1. And if you don't, comment 2. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time.
4. Valuing the present in an impermanent world. The lesson from impermanence. On a clear morning, as the first rays of the sun sprinkled across the tranquil garden of a monastery, a young novice with a serene demeanor was diligently watering each plant and flower. He poured not just water, but his soul and passion into each droplet that glistened under the gentle sunlight, creating a scene of peace and beauty. From a distance, a traveler appeared. His thoughtful expression and weary gait spoke of a life filled with ups and downs. He paused to watch the novice and then asked in a raspy voice tinged with curiosity, "Young monk, life is impermanent. Everything changes and decays, so why do you spend your efforts caring for these plants? Isn't it all in vain?" The novice looked up, his eyes clear and sparkling like morning dew, and smiled gently. With a calm and profound understanding, he replied, "Sir, it is precisely because of impermanence that we must care for and cherish everything. If all were unchanging, what need would there be for our care?" The traveler was taken aback by the depth of the novice's response. He felt as though a new door had opened, giving him a clearer understanding of life's nature. Life is like a painting filled with the colors of impermanence. Morning finds us youthful and energetic, but by evening we may feel tired and drained. Yesterday, we were healthy and engaging in lively conversations. Today, we might be ill and exhausted, as if having weathered a storm within. This constant change highlights the temporary and fragile nature of life. Remembering the teachings of Buddha, that life is an illusion, helps us see that everything is merely a mirage, a thin veil of fog, a fleeting flash of lightning that soon disappears. As the Zen master Truk Lam once wrote in his poem, "Dream the body, dream the surroundings. When dreams dissolve, so do the illusions. Let the dreamer be aware of the dreaming. Awake from the dream." Indeed, human life is like a dream. Everything changes, nothing lasts forever. This impermanence is not exclusive to any one of us. It is a universal truth. It sometimes brings sorrow and regret when we cannot hold on to what we desire. Everyone wants to grasp onto things, but due to impermanence, we often face loss, separation from the natural processes of aging and dying to the pains of love, family, and work. The Buddha taught, all formations are impermanent, and the Diamond Sutra states, all conditioned phenomena are like dreams, illusions, bubbles, or shadows. They should be viewed as such. After his enlightenment under the Bodhi tree, the Buddha realized that everything, from humans to all forms of life, must follow the universal law of change. Nothing remains static or lasts forever in this world. However, some people still believe that the world is permanent. They indulge in excessive pleasures, losing their integrity and quality as human beings. It's tragic for those who do not recognize the impermanence of life and get lost in shallow pursuits. From this story, we learn the importance of valuing each present moment, living with gratitude and awareness of impermanence. It is this impermanence that makes life precious and meaningful. By understanding and accepting impermanence, we can truly live peacefully and happily. Thus, we should live mindfully, recognizing that life is transient, and from this knowledge cherish, love, and care for what we currently have. 5. Appreciating the present, living meaningfully, and spreading love. On the summit of a towering mountain, where white clouds drift like soft silk, stood an ancient temple named White Cloud. In this temple resided a venerable Zen master renowned for his profound wisdom and boundless compassion. People called him Master Peaceful Mind. One day, Master Peaceful Mind called his most trusted disciple, a young man named Bright Wisdom, to his side. Bright Wisdom was intelligent and eager to learn, but carried many uncertainties about life. Master Peaceful Mind handed Bright Wisdom a small bronze mirror, its surface gleaming like a clear autumn lake. "Look into this mirror and tell me what you see," he gently instructed. Bright Wisdom took the mirror and gazed at his own reflection. He saw a youthful face, bright eyes full of vitality. "I see myself, Master," he replied. Master Peaceful Mind smiled, his eyes reflecting a deep, hidden meaning. "Yes, you see yourself, but do you realize that this image is temporary? Our bodies will age and change over time. Beauty will fade, health will decline, and eventually, everything will return to dust." Hearing these words, Bright Wisdom felt a wave of melancholy. He had never considered this harsh reality, always believing that youth and vitality would remain with him forever. Master Peaceful Mind placed a reassuring hand on Bright Wisdom's shoulder, his voice warm and comforting like sunlight dispersing the cold fog. "Do not be sad, Bright Wisdom. Impermanence is a natural part of life, but that does not mean we must live in sorrow and fear. On the contrary, awareness of impermanence helps us to cherish each moment, living a meaningful and fulfilling life." Bright Wisdom looked up at his master, hope shining in his eyes. "Master, how can I live a meaningful life?" Master Peaceful Mind pointed towards the distant horizon, where the sun was setting, painting the sky in hues of red. "Look at the sun. It rises and sets, days come and go. Life is the same. There is birth and death, union and separation. But within this endless cycle we find the meaning of life. Live fully, do good deeds, help others, and spread love. That is how we leave our mark on this world, even though our bodies will return to dust." Bright Wisdom listened to his master's teachings, filled with emotion. He realized that life is a priceless gift and he could not waste it. He resolved to live a meaningful life, leaving behind a legacy of goodness for future generations. From that moment on, Bright Wisdom changed completely. He no longer pursued trivial desires, but focused on cultivating his mind, performing good deeds, and helping others. He became a person with a kind heart, always ready to share and love. The story of Bright Wisdom and Master Peaceful Mind reminds us of life's impermanence. No matter how wealthy, powerful, or beautiful we are, in the end, we all return to dust. Therefore, let us cherish each moment, live a meaningful life, do good deeds, and spread love. This is how we leave our mark on the world, even though our bodies will return to dust. 6. A lesson from humanity's shared pain. One peaceful morning, as the gentle sunlight filtered through the lush green leaves, Buddha and his disciples strolled through a small village to spread their teachings. Suddenly, the heart-wrenching cries of a woman echoed from afar. It was a mother holding her deceased child in her arms, tears streaming down her cheeks, her heart heavy with grief. She cried out in agony, her voice choked with emotion, "Buddha, please save my child, my only child, the hope of our family who has been taken by this terrible illness. With your powers, please bring him back to us. I cannot go on living without him." Buddha looked at the mother with compassionate and understanding eyes, and he gently said, "Listen to me. Go from house to house in this village and ask for a mustard seed from a household that has never experienced death. Bring that mustard seed back to me, and I will see what I can do for your child." With renewed hope, the mother rushed out, going from door to door asking for a mustard seed. But at each house she was told that they too had lost a loved one. The more she searched, the more she realized that her grief was not unique, but shared by everyone. Some, moved by her maternal love, offered her mustard seeds, but she refused, knowing that hiding the truth would not bring her child back. As night fell, the mother returned to Buddha with empty hands, her voice breaking through her tears. "I could not find a house as you described. Everyone has experienced loss like I have." Buddha gently consoled her. "You see, loss is an inevitable part of life. We cannot avoid it, but we can accept it and learn to overcome it. This truth shows you that you are not alone in your pain. It is a shared experience among all people." The mother, feeling a sense of calm wash over her, realized that life and death are two sides of the same coin, inseparable. Accepting this, she decided not to let her grief destroy her life, but to live on, cherishing and loving the memory of her child. From this story, we learn that life is impermanent and nothing lasts forever. Buddha taught that everything is born and then decays, gathers and then disperses, accumulates and then depletes. We must learn to accept losses and changes to avoid being caught in the cycle of suffering. As Buddha said, what is born will decay, what is gathered will disperse, what is accumulated will deplete, what is built will collapse, what is raised up will fall. Remember that no matter how great the pain, it will ease with time. Life is a continuous flow, and we must keep moving forward, not letting past sorrows hold us back. Cherish the present moments and live life to the fullest. 7. Letting go of expectations to find peace. A sweltering summer sun beat down on the small street. Beads of sweat rolled down the forehead of a middle-aged man as he hurried into a roadside fruit stand. His eyes lit up when he saw the plump, green watermelons. Selecting the best one, he paid and rushed home, filled with anticipation. All afternoon he had been thinking about the sweet, refreshing taste of watermelon to quench his thirst. Once home, he quickly washed the melon, placed it on the cutting board, and sliced it open. But as soon as the first piece touched his tongue, his smile faded. The sweetness he had expected was absent, replaced by a bland, even slightly sour taste. Disappointed, he put the knife down and sighed. His children, playing outside, saw him and ran in asking, "Dad, is the watermelon good?" He looked at them, a sadness he couldn't explain filling his heart. He didn't want to disappoint them, but he also couldn't lie. "The watermelon isn't very sweet," he said sadly. The children glanced at each other, and the eldest said, "It's okay, Dad, we can make watermelon smoothies. They'll taste better." He looked at his child, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. Why hadn't he thought of that? Smiling, he patted his child's head and went to the kitchen with them. As they made smoothies, he reflected on what had happened. Why had he been so disappointed over a not-so-sweet watermelon? Perhaps it was because he had placed too much hope on it, expecting it to be perfect and fulfill all his desires. Life doesn't always go as planned. That evening, he visited a revered monk he deeply respected. He shared the story of the watermelon and his disappointment. The monk listened quietly, then slowly said, "People often suffer because of their expectations. We hope for too much, and when things don't turn out as expected, we feel disappointed and sad. But do you know, it's these expectations that are the root of suffering." The man pondered the monk's words and asked, "So, How can I avoid disappointment, Master? The monk smiled. Learn to let go of your expectations. Accept that life is impermanent and everything can change. When you're not overly attached to your hopes, you'll find more peace in your heart. He bowed in gratitude, feeling a deep sense of thankfulness. He realized that the monk's words were not just about handling disappointment, but about living life. From that day on, he practiced letting go of his expectations. He no longer placed too much hope on anything, simply accepting things as they came. His life became lighter, more serene. Life doesn't always go our way, but we can choose how to face it. Instead of feeling disappointed and sad, learn to let go of your expectations and accept things as they are. When we know how to let go, we find peace within our souls. If you find these stories inspiring and they motivate you to take action, please comment 9. If not, comment 0. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time. 8. Transcending life and death, living with wisdom and enlightenment. Once upon a time, there was a Brahmin who had dedicated himself to learning and practicing spiritual teachings since his youth. Despite reaching the age of 60, he had not attained enlightenment. According to Brahmin law, if a person reaches this age without achieving enlightenment, they must return to secular life, marry, and live as an ordinary person. Accepting his fate, the Brahmin returned home, got married, and had a handsome, endearing son. The boy grew up to be exceptionally intelligent, excelling in his studies and eloquent in his speech. However, when the boy turned 7, he suddenly fell ill and passed away. The Brahmin was overwhelmed with grief, holding his son's body and crying day and night until he fainted from sorrow. His relatives consoled him and took care of the child's burial outside the city. In his despair, the Brahmin thought, "What good is all this mourning? I should go find King Yama and demand my son's life back." With this resolve, he bathed, prepared his belongings, gathered incense and flowers, and set out on his journey. He traveled far and wide, asking everyone he met about the whereabouts of King Yama. Eventually, he reached a deep mountain region and encountered enlightened sages. They asked him, "Why are you seeking King Yama?" He replied, "My son, who was exceptionally bright and eloquent, recently died suddenly. I cannot forget him and wish to ask King Yama to return his life to me." The sages, feeling pity for the naive old man, said, "The place where King Yama resides is not accessible to the living, but we can guide you. Travel west for over 4,000 miles and you will reach a great river. There, you will find a city where divine beings rest while inspecting the world. King Yama visits this city on the 8th day of each month. Keep yourself pure and you will meet him on that day." The Brahmin, overjoyed, followed their instructions and arrived at the great river. He saw a magnificent city in the middle of the river, with palaces and houses as splendid as the heavens. He approached the gate, burned incense, prayed earnestly to meet King Yama, and waited hopefully. King Yama, hearing his plea, summoned him and asked, "What do you wish to ask?" The Brahmin said, "I am an old man who recently had a son, hoping he would care for me in my old age. However, he died unexpectedly at the age of 7. Please, great king, grant my request and return my son to me." King Yama responded, "Very well. Your son is currently playing in the Eastern Garden. Go there and bring him back." The Brahmin went to the garden and saw his son playing with other children. He ran to his son, embraced him, and wept, saying, "I miss you day and night, unable to eat or sleep. Don't you miss your parents who are suffering so much?" The child, startled, exclaimed, "Go back! This old man is so naive, not understanding the nature of things. I only temporarily stayed in your house and was called your son. Do not speak nonsense. It is better for you to leave. I have parents here as well, and we were only temporarily connected. There is no need for attachment." Hearing this, the Brahmin sorrowfully left, thinking, "I have heard that the sage Gautama understands the nature of consciousness's transitions. I will go and ask him." He then sought out the Buddha, who was residing at Jetavana Monastery in Sravasti, teaching the Dharma to the assembly. The Brahmin approached the Buddha, bowed, and recounted his story. "My son refused to acknowledge me, calling me naive and saying that he was only a temporary guest. He showed no filial love. Why is this so?" The Buddha replied, "You are indeed naive. When people die, their consciousness leaves and takes on a new form. Parents and children, husbands and wives are like travelers meeting briefly at a marketplace and then parting ways. Yet, beings naively cling to these relationships as if they were real. Sorrow and suffering arise from not understanding this fundamental truth, leading to endless cycles of birth and death. Only the wise, free from attachment and desire, enlightened to the truth of suffering, diligently practice the path, extinguish delusion, and transcend birth and death." The Buddha then recited a verse. "People worry about their families, ignoring the impermanence of life. Death comes suddenly, like a flood beside a mountain. Neither father nor son can save. No one else can help. When life ends, we cannot rely on relatives, like a blind man watching over cattle. Understanding this, one should practice diligently, surpassing worldly concerns, eliminating all suffering, avoiding all evil realms, free from delusion. When delusion ceases, right understanding appears. Wisdom is the greatest treasure, finding joy in the path of liberation. If one upholds the true Dharma, birth and death will end." Hearing these words, the Brahmin suddenly became enlightened, understanding the impermanence of life and the temporary nature of family bonds. He bowed deeply and asked to become a monk. The Buddha said, "Excellent." His hair and beard immediately fell away, and he was fully robed as a monk. Reflecting on the meaning of the verse, he relinquished all attachments and delusions, attaining the state of an arahant on the spot. Life is impermanent, and birth and death are just the transformations of consciousness. The bonds between parents, children, and spouses are temporary, and we should not cling to them. Understanding this, we should live with wisdom, free from the binds of emotions and not suffer from loss. Only through practice and enlightenment can we transcend birth and death and achieve peace. 9. The value of life emerges when faced with death. A chill evening wind whispered through the ancient forest, swirling dry, golden leaves along the winding path. An old lumberjack, stooped and weary, trudged along, his shoulders burdened with a bundle of dry wood, sweat soaking through his thin shirt. Each breath he took seemed to carry the weight of his many years. "Woe is me," the old man muttered, his voice lost in the wind. "To live to such an age and still have to work so hard just to survive. If only I could let it all go and rest." Suddenly, a dark figure loomed before him, blocking out the last rays of the setting sun. The old man started, his cloudy eyes widening in fear. Before him stood a tall man with a face as cold as stone and eyes as deep as the night. "I am Death," the deep, hollow voice echoed, cold as a breeze from the underworld. "Did you call for me?" The old man trembled, his dry lips quivering. Death? No, I was just joking." Death's lips curled into a slight, eerie smile, making the old man even more terrified. "I heard your lament. You wish to let go of everything? I can help you." The old man instinctively stepped back, his heart pounding as if it would burst from his chest. No, no need. I was just speaking nonsense. Actually, I want to live. Death moved closer, his bony hand reaching out as if to touch the old man. Do not fear. Death's voice seemed to echo from a distant place. I will help you find release from all your suffering. A cold shiver ran down the old man's spine. He quickly stepped back, his hands shaking as he pointed to the bundle of wood on the ground. Please, help me lift this bundle onto my shoulders. I must take it home. Death looked at him in surprise, then burst into laughter. Very well, I will help you. With that, Death lifted the bundle and placed it on the old man's shoulders. The old man bowed his head in gratitude and hurried away. Death watched as the old man's figure faded into the night, shaking his head slightly. Humans are truly strange. Death muttered, in suffering, they wish for death, but when death comes close, they are afraid. Perhaps life itself is the most precious thing. The story of the old lumberjack and death is a profound reminder of the value of life. When we face hardship and pain, we often wish for an escape, to let go of everything. But when death truly approaches, we realize that life, no matter how difficult, is the most precious thing of all. Cherish every moment of life, for we never know what tomorrow will bring. Live fully, love deeply, and give your all, for only when we appreciate life can we find its true meaning. 10. Greed is the enemy of friendship and peace. In a distant land in India, where golden sands glisten under the sun, there lived a farmer named Ga next to his neighbor Dev. Ga and Dev had long been good friends, sharing the joys and sorrows of their farming lives in peaceful harmony. One day, Ga decided to buy a piece of Dev's land to expand his farm. Little did they know that this day would mark the end of their golden era and the beginning of darker times. After the purchase was completed, Ga eagerly began to dig the land to prepare for cultivation. To his surprise, he unearthed a large pot of gold buried deep in the ground. Being an honest man with a pure heart, Ga didn't hesitate to return the gold to Dev. He said, Dev, I bought the land from you, not the gold. This belongs to you. Please take it back. Dev, equally sincere, looked at Ga with fondness and replied, When I sold you the land, I sold everything on and under it. I had no idea there was gold there. This is your good fortune. You should keep it. They kept passing the gold back and forth, their noble hearts touching everyone who heard the story. To avoid further argument, they decided to discuss it the next morning. That night, while lying in bed, the impermanence of human nature began to reveal itself. Though upright, Ga felt a twinge of regret at giving up the gold. Dev, despite his sincerity, couldn't escape the pang of regret over the lost treasure. The next morning, Ga said, Dev, I've thought it over. You were right. I bought the land, so everything beneath it belongs to me. I'll keep the gold. Dev immediately countered, No, I've also reconsidered. You bought the land, but the gold is mine. I will take it. Their argument escalated, turning them from friends to foes. Ultimately, they took the matter to court. At the trial, both Ga and Dev presented their cases, leaving the judge perplexed. After listening, the judge sighed and said, You were once good friends, but greed has driven you to this dispute. Gold cannot buy friendship, and greed is the enemy of peace. Remember, what is meant to be yours will always be yours, and what isn't you cannot keep by force. Hearing the judge's words, Ga and Dev realized the futility and destructiveness of their greed. Regretful, they decided to split the gold and preserve their precious friendship. This story illustrates the fickleness of human nature. Yesterday, Ga and Dev were noble and good friends, But in just one night, greed and regret turned them into rivals. Impermanence applies not only to material things but also to the human soul. People's hearts can change as quickly as the wind. We must understand that when good opportunities arise, we must seize them immediately and do good deeds without delay. If not, greed and the shifting mind can cause us to miss out on great things. Impermanence is ever present in life. To maintain honesty and virtue, we must control our desires and cherish the true value of human relationships rather than being driven by greed. In all circumstances, keep a pure heart and be grateful for what you have, for sometimes the things we give up are the most precious.
If you like this video, please comment 1. And if you don't, comment 2. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time.
11. Embracing impermanence, living with the flow to find peace. Zen master Thap Nhan Van Ich, always striving on the path to enlightenment, sought out Zen master Kan Hui to practice meditation, hoping to find liberation and understanding of the way. Despite his utmost efforts, he couldn't attain enlightenment. Filled with disappointment, he decided to leave and began a journey, wandering aimlessly in search of peace and enlightenment in life. One day, amidst a heavy rain, Thap Nhan sought refuge at the Daitang Monastery. Sitting on the veranda, watching the raindrops hit the ground, his heart was heavy with thoughts about life. The monastery's guest monk, a quiet and perceptive individual, approached and gently asked, "Where are you headed, Zen master?" Thap Nhan looked up and smiled. "I have no specific destination, just wandering." The guest monk, surprised, asked, "What do you feel about your aimless wandering?" Thap Nhan gazed into the distance where white clouds floated in the sky and water trickled from the temple roof. Slowly, he replied, "Clouds and water follow their course." The guest monk nodded, his eyes reflecting deep empathy. Clouds and water follow their course. That is the most carefree way of being. Hearing this, Zen master Thap Nhan suddenly felt a lightness in his heart, as if he had found an answer to his long-standing questions. He realized that life is inherently impermanent, and it is by going with the flow that true freedom and peace are found. When the rain stopped, the guest monk and Thap Nhan sat on the veranda, engaging in a profound conversation about the meaning of life. The guest monk shared an old story. There was a Zen master who watered a barren tree every day. When asked why, he replied, "Life is impermanent. Perhaps tomorrow the tree will bloom. We live in this world without knowing what will come, only able to live fully in the present and let things unfold naturally." Thap Nhan, deeply moved, realized that he had forgotten the most important thing, living fully in the present and allowing everything to happen naturally, like clouds and water. He bowed to the guest monk and said, "Thank you. I understand now. Life is truly impermanent, and only by living with the flow can one find peace." Leaving the Daitang Monastery, Thap Nhan felt liberated. He continued his wandering journey, but this time with a completely different mindset. He understood that only by accepting life's impermanence, living with the flow, and letting go of all attachments can one find true peace and freedom. Life is inherently impermanent. Nothing lasts forever. We often get caught up in worries, pursuits, and desires, but sometimes forget that true happiness lies in accepting and living with what is happening. Let go of what you cannot control, live fully in the present, and allow everything to unfold naturally. Only then can we find true peace and freedom within our hearts. 12. Understanding impermanence to live meaningfully and peacefully. Once upon a time in the land of Magadha, there was a renowned and virtuous king named Ashoka. He was the ninth descendant of King Bimbisara and ascended the throne in 269 BCE at the age of 35. He ruled for 38 years and passed away in 232 BCE at the age of 73. King Ashoka was not only famous for his leadership skills, but also for his deep devotion to Buddhism. He used his wealth to build temples, support monks, and help the poor. King Ashoka had a younger brother named Vitashoka, also known as Tissa. Vitashoka often saw his brother living simply, indifferent to fame and fortune, focusing on charitable deeds. This made him frustrated as he felt his brother was wasting wealth on unworthy causes. Vitashoka preferred a life of luxury, hunting, and indulgence. Realizing that his brother's mind was clouded by materialism, King Ashoka decided to teach him a lesson about impermanence and the true meaning of life. One day, Ashoka called Vitashoka and said, "You will be king for 7 days, with full authority to make decisions, but after 7 days, you will be executed." Desiring power, Vitashoka agreed immediately. During those 7 days, a guard reminded him each day, "Sir, 1 day has passed and you have X days left. With each passing day, the number of days left decreased, and the looming threat of death grew heavier." On the 7th day, King Ashoka appeared and asked Vitashoka, "Today is the last day. How do you feel after being king for 7 days?" With a tense and anxious expression, Vitashoka replied, "Though I am not dead yet, I feel as if I have already died. My mind cannot enjoy anything." King Ashoka smiled and said, "I will not kill you, but I wanted you to understand that someone aware of life's impermanence, with death always close by, cannot indulge as you thought. Those who realize life's impermanence are not easily lost in desires and indulgence." Hearing these words, Vitashoka awakened to the profound lesson his brother intended. He decided to follow the Buddha's teachings and abandon his misguided views. Acknowledging the impermanence and fragility of life, Vitashoka began to live righteously, seeking enlightenment and liberation. The story of King Ashoka and Vitashoka offers a valuable lesson about impermanence and the true meaning of life. Power, status, and fame may be the dreams of many, but they do not bring lasting peace and happiness. Life is impermanent and death can come at any time. Only by recognizing this can we live fully and meaningfully without being blinded by desires and greed. Leaders, regardless of their position, must face great responsibilities and cannot merely enjoy their privileges. Life is unpredictable, and once we realize this, it becomes easier to let go of attachments, live simply, and focus on virtuous deeds. Enlightenment and wisdom help us find the right path in life, avoiding the maze of materialism and desires. Live mindfully, recognize impermanence, and cherish every moment, for life is precious and short. 13. True freedom lies in the soul, not in external conditions. The evening sun bathed the ancient monastery in golden light. The last rays of the day pierced through the leaves of the old Bodhi tree, casting dancing patterns on the damp ground. Inside the tranquil meditation hall, Master Hui Neng, the sixth patriarch of Zen, sat in deep meditation. His eyes were gently closed, and his face radiated a serene calm. Suddenly, a young novice, his face full of worry, entered the hall. Kneeling respectfully before the master, he clasped his hands and said, "Master, I have a question." Master Huineng slowly opened his eyes and looked kindly at the novice. "Speak," he said. The novice hesitated for a moment before asking, "Master, is a sparrow in a cage still free?" Master Huineng smiled gently but did not answer immediately. He looked out the window at a sparrow chirping happily on a tree branch. Turning back to the novice, he asked, "Do you see that sparrow out there?" "Yes, I do," the novice replied. "Is it free?" asked the master. The novice thought for a moment and then answered, "Yes, it is free, flying and hopping on the branch." Master Huineng nodded and then asked, "If I were to catch it and put it in a cage, would it still be free?" The novice bowed his head sadly. "No, it wouldn't." Master Huineng looked at the novice with a glint of wisdom in his eyes. "Is the problem with the cage or with the sparrow's mind?" he asked. The novice was puzzled and didn't understand. Master Huineng patiently explained, "A sparrow in a cage, though physically confined, can still feel free if its mind remains free, still yearning for the vast sky. But if it accepts the cage as its home, its only refuge, then even if released, it wouldn't know where to fly or what to do with its freedom." The novice listened, and a revelation dawned upon him. True freedom is not about external conditions, but a state of the soul. A free mind can find joy and happiness anywhere. Master Huineng, seeing the novice's understanding, smiled and said, "A person's mind is like that sparrow. If bound by greed, anger, and delusion, even living in luxury, one cannot feel true happiness. Only when the mind is freed from these burdens can one find peace and tranquility." The novice bowed gratefully. "I will remember your teachings, Master." Master Huineng patted the novice's head with loving kindness. "Always remember, true freedom lies not outside but within one's own heart. If your mind is free, you can find happiness anywhere, doing anything." The novice bowed again and left, walking on the stone path, filled with joy and hope. The evening sun faded, and darkness enveloped the ancient monastery. But within the novice, the light of wisdom and liberation shone brightly. The story of the sparrow in the cage reminds us that true freedom is not about external conditions but lies within each person's heart. When our minds are free from greed, anger, and delusion, we can find happiness and peace, no matter where we are or what we do. 14. Contentment is the key to happiness. Once upon a time, in a distant village, there lived a wealthy old man with his 2 sons. When the old man passed away, the brothers decided to live together under one roof, following an old tradition. However, over time, small disagreements grew into significant arguments. Eventually, they chose to live separately and divide their father's inheritance equally. During this division, they discovered a small box their father had carefully hidden. Inside, they found 2 rings. One was a sparkling, valuable diamond ring, and the other was a simple silver ring worth only a few cents. The elder brother, his eyes gleaming with greed, said, "This diamond ring must be an heirloom from our ancestors, which is why our father kept it aside for future generations. As the elder son, I will keep it. You can have the silver ring." The younger brother, with a gentle smile, replied, "All right, you can enjoy the diamond ring and I will be content with the silver one." They put on their rings and went their separate ways. The younger brother couldn't stop thinking about the silver ring. He wondered, "It's understandable why father kept the precious diamond ring, but why did he keep this ordinary silver ring?" Upon closer inspection, he noticed a small inscription, "This too shall pass." This was his father's mantra, "This too shall pass." With this in mind, he put the ring back on his finger. Both brothers faced life's ups and downs. When spring came, the elder brother felt extreme joy, becoming unbalanced in his emotions. As autumn and winter arrived, he fell into depression, losing his mental stability, suffering from high blood pressure, sleepless nights, and ultimately requiring tranquilizers and electroshock therapy. This was the fate of the elder brother with the diamond ring. The younger brother, with the silver ring on his finger, enjoyed the spring without becoming overly excited. He smiled at the ring and remembered, "This too shall pass." As the weather changed, he continued to smile, thinking, "Well, I knew it would change, and it did. So what?" When autumn and winter came, he looked at the ring and remembered, "This too shall pass." He didn't feel sad because he knew everything was temporary. His mind remained balanced and he lived a peaceful, happy life. The story of the two brothers and their rings is a profound lesson about life. We often get caught up in grand ambitions and endless desires, but true happiness lies in contentment and appreciating the small things. Like a great river with many streams, Buddhism offers numerous methods, but we don't need to practice them all. One genuine method, practiced sincerely, is enough to achieve enlightenment and liberation. Don't let unfounded fears prevent you from finding happiness. Don't let ambition blind you to the good things right in front of you. Learn to cherish every moment, every opportunity, and every drop of fresh water in life. As Buddha taught, water from 3,000 miles away can be used to quench your thirst with just one scoop. This story teaches us that life shouldn't be spent chasing grand ambitions at the expense of overlooking the simple and precious things around us. Knowing contentment and appreciating what we have is truly the key to happiness and inner peace. Live slowly, love more, and remember that everything will change. 15. The shore of happiness. Found in peaceful and persistent souls. As the sun gradually set over the vast ocean, it painted the sky in vibrant shades of red. The cool ocean breeze carried the salty scent of the sea. On a small boat, a Zen master sat meditating, his gaze fixed on the distant horizon. A young disciple approached the master and respectfully bowed. "Master, I have a question." "Speak, my child. I will answer you." "Master, life is like a boat on the ocean. The sea is immense and the waves are unpredictable. How can one find a peaceful shore amidst such chaos?" The Zen master smiled and pointed toward the distant horizon. "Do you see that boat? It drifts in the vast sea, surrounded by waves, yet it is not afraid. It knows that the shore is always ahead." The disciple looked in the direction the master pointed and his eyes brightened. "Master, you mean that people are like that boat. No matter how many waves they encounter, as long as they persist, they will find a peaceful shore." The master nodded. "Indeed, life is like a boat on the ocean. Sometimes the sea is calm, other times it is stormy. But no matter how many challenges we face, as long as we do not give up hope and continue moving forward, we will surely find happiness." The disciple pondered for a moment and then asked, "But Master, how do we know where the shore of happiness is?" The master looked at the disciple with loving eyes. "The shore of happiness is not far away. It is within our own souls. If we can let go of greed, anger, and selfishness, our hearts will become peaceful and calm. That is the shore of happiness we seek." The disciple, filled with gratitude, knelt before the master and bowed 3 times. "Thank you, Master, for your teachings." The master helped the disciple up and smiled. "Remember my words. Always keep faith, hope, and love in your heart. They are the lighthouse guiding you on your journey to find the shore of happiness." The story of the Zen master and his disciple teaches us a valuable lesson. Life is like a boat on the ocean, sometimes calm, sometimes stormy. But no matter the difficulties, as long as we do not give up hope and persist, we will find happiness. The shore of happiness is not far away. It is within our own souls. Letting go of greed, anger, and selfishness brings peace and tranquility to our hearts. This is the shore of happiness we seek. If you find these stories inspiring and they motivate you to take action, please comment 9. If not, comment 0. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time. 16. Embracing challenges to grow. Learning about impermanence on the path of meditation, there was a student from Master Ding Zhou, a disciple of northern sects Shen Xiu, who visited Master Diao Ju for further study. Master Diao Ju was known for his profound knowledge and strict demeanor. Upon seeing the student, he asked, "Is there any difference between Ding Zhou's place and mine?" The student calmly replied, "There isn't much difference." Hearing this, Master Diao Ju disagreed with the answer and invoked the great skill of Master Matsu's teachings. "If there isn't much difference, then you shouldn't stay here. Go back to where you came from." Saying this, Master Diao Ju gave the student a strong strike with his stick. The student did not dodge and responded in a calm voice, "If you truly have the eye, you should aim carefully before striking. Even though it's a Zen stick, you can't hit people carelessly." Master Diao Ju, hearing the student's resistance and calmness, said, "Today I find someone worthy of my strikes." He then hit the student 3 more times. The student endured the blows, turned away, and thought to himself, "The renowned endurance of Master Diao Ju is not all that impressive. Leaving the Zen gate without entering the way, how can you hit randomly?" Seeing the student about to leave, Master Diao Ju called out loudly, "Even a blind stick should make people willingly endure, right?" The student turned back and, with the respect of a guest, said, "The stick is in your hand. What else can I do?" Master Diao Ju replied, "If you think so, then I will strike you." The student stepped forward, grabbed the stick from Master Diao Ju's hand, and hit the master 3 times. Master Diao Ju pretended to be frightened and said, "How strange, how strange." The student responded, "Even if it's a blind stick, one must willingly endure, right?" Finally, Master Diao Ju said, "For such an outstanding talent, using the stick carelessly is truly wrong." The student then bowed. Master Diao Ju immediately shouted, "What are you thinking?" and struck the student again. The student, unable to bear it, knelt down and said, "Well used, well used. Striking those you love and scolding those you cherish is a form of affection." Under such blows, the student finally achieved harmony with the master. The story of Master Diao Ju and the student offers a profound lesson about the impermanence of life. In life, challenges and difficulties are like the strikes from the master stick. Although painful, they are opportunities for us to train and grow. Life is impermanent. Nothing lasts forever. It is these trials and tribulations that help us understand ourselves and life better. Only by facing and accepting difficulties can we find peace and wisdom. Like the student in the story, we need to learn to endure willingly and appreciate the lessons life offers because they are precious opportunities for growth and enlightenment. Master Diao Ju did not use the stick to cause meaningless pain, but to teach the student an important lesson about patience, perseverance, and accepting the impermanence of life. Sometimes, harshness is hidden love, helping us realize and develop our true potential. Remember, life is not always easy, but it is in the challenging moments that we truly understand the value of patience and courage. Embrace every challenge with a calm and grateful heart, for it is the only way to move closer to enlightenment and peace in this impermanent life. Humble. 17. Letting go of worries, achieving inner peace. As the setting sun bathed the mountains and forests in golden light, Zen Master Hui Zhong sat in meditation within his quiet hermitage. His mind was as tranquil as an autumn lake, undisturbed by any waves. Suddenly, a stranger appeared, breaking the stillness. It was monk Tripitaka, a renowned monk from distant India, famous for his supernatural ability to read others' thoughts. With a confident demeanor, Tripitaka spoke. "Zen Master Hui Zhong, I've heard of your reputation for a long time. Today, I come seeking your guidance." Hui Zhong gently opened his eyes and smiled kindly. "You flatter me, monk. I am but a simple practitioner and unworthy of offering guidance." Unfazed, Tripitaka continued, "I've heard you have the ability to control your mind unaffected by external circumstances. I wish to test this." Hui Zhong nodded slightly, his eyes brightening. "How would you like to test it?" Tripitaka smiled enigmatically. "Please think of something, and I will try to guess what it is." Hui Zhong closed his eyes, thought for a moment, then said, "Please, monk, tell me where my mind is now." Tripitaka concentrated, using his supernatural powers. After a while, he responded, "Your mind is on the peak of a high mountain beside a small stream." Hui Zhong nodded and smiled. "You are indeed skillful." Feeling more confident, Tripitaka pressed on. "Can you now tell me where your body is?" Hui Zhong closed his eyes again, took a moment, and then replied, "My body is in the deep forest, playing with a group of monkeys." Tripitaka laughed heartily. "You have a good sense of humor, master." Suddenly, Hui Zhong's expression changed, becoming serious. He closed his eyes again, focusing deeply, entering a profound meditative state. At this moment, his mind was free of any thoughts. His body and nature became one. Tripitaka tried to use his supernatural powers to probe, but could not find any trace of Hui Zhong's thoughts. He was bewildered, not understanding what was happening. After a while, Hui Zhong opened his eyes and smiled at Tripitaka. "Monk, you have great powers and can read others' thoughts, but you cannot see my mind now. Do you know why?" Tripitaka shook his head, confused. Hui Zhong calmly explained, "Because my mind is now empty, free from any thoughts or distractions. With no mind to read, how could you possibly detect it?" Tripitaka was enlightened, bowing deeply before Hui Zhong. "I understand now. Thank you for your teaching." The story of Zen Master Hui Zhong and monk Tripitaka offers a profound lesson about the mind. Our minds are naturally empty and pure, but external influences create countless worries. Only when we let go of these random thoughts and focus on the present can our minds return to their original state, unaffected by the outside world. This is the state of a mind without external objects, a state anyone can achieve through practice. Life is short and impermanent, like a dream. If we constantly chase material desires and fame, we will never find true happiness. Only by letting go and living in the present can our minds be at peace and free. This is the true meaning of life. 18. Perseverance and patience lead to enlightenment. The Enlightenment Journey of Banda. In the foothills of Vulture Peak, where Buddha Shakyamuni imparted his teachings, lived a disciple named Banda. Banda was kind-hearted and simple, but his mind was somewhat dull. Unlike his fellow disciples, the teachings of Buddha seemed to fly over his head, leaving no impression. Feeling compassion for Banda, Buddha assigned 500 arhats to take turns instructing him, but all efforts seemed in vain. Banda remained bewildered and confused by the profound teachings. One day, Buddha called Banda to his side. Gazing into the eyes of his troubled disciple, he spoke gently, "Banda, listen to me. I will teach you a verse. Remember every word, every line carefully." With a calm and soothing voice, Buddha recited, Control your speech, restrain your thoughts, maintain your actions, do not transgress. Act in this way, you will transcend the world. Banda listened attentively, striving to imprint each word of Buddha's verse in his mind. Buddha advised, though this verse is brief, its meaning is profound. Dedicate yourself to it, and one day you will understand. Day and night, Banda chanted the verse, pondering its meaning. Yet, Buddha's teachings remained like a dense fog, hard to penetrate. Time passed, and Banda persisted in his practice. One early morning, as the first light of dawn appeared, Banda felt a sudden clarity in his mind. The words of Buddha's verse became vivid, their profound meaning gradually unfolding. Banda realized that the verse was not just about maintaining one's actions, speech, and thoughts, but a guide to enlightenment and truth. News of Banda's enlightenment spread quickly. Buddha decided to send Banda to a nearby temple to teach. Hearing this, the monks and nuns at the temple were astonished. They thought, Banda, who was known to be slow-witted, what could he possibly teach? When Banda arrived at the temple, he was received with skepticism. He humbly said, "Dear brothers and sisters, I am ignorant and have only learned a verse from Buddha. Today, I wish to share it with you." Banda began to recite the verse, each word clear and precise. Initially, the monks and nuns dismissed it, thinking the verse was too simple and well known. But as Banda started to explain, they were amazed. From a brief verse, Banda elucidated countless profound meanings, linking it to Buddhist scriptures and illustrating with vivid stories. His teachings were like refreshing streams, nurturing the parched hearts of the monks and nuns. They awoke from their ignorance, realizing the precious truths they had overlooked. At the end of his sermon, the monks and nuns bowed respectfully before Banda, expressing their admiration and gratitude. They recognized that the disciple they once underestimated had become an enlightened teacher, worthy of great respect. Banda's story is a valuable lesson in perseverance and patience in practice. No matter how slow or inadequate one might be, with sincere effort and determination, enlightenment is attainable. The story also reminds us not to judge others by appearances. Someone who seems foolish on the outside may harbor profound wisdom within. Always keep an open heart, ready to embrace new experiences, for they might be the opportunities that lead us to enlightenment. 19. True happiness comes from letting go and appreciating the present. In the midst of a lush bamboo forest, an ancient temple stood hidden in the early morning mist. Within the dimly lit main hall, illuminated by the soft glow of oil lamps, Master Mintam sat in serene meditation on a cushion, surrounded by his disciples who listened attentively with hands clasped in respect. One day, after a session of meditation, Master Mintam spoke, "Dear students, when you look at the ever-changing world around us, what causes your heart the most pain?" The disciples pondered deeply. One brave student spoke up, "Master, I believe it is the pain of separation. When I am parted from those I love, my heart feels as though it is being torn apart." Master Mintam smiled gently. "You are right. But do you know why separation causes us such sorrow?" The disciple shook his head, eyes filled with curiosity. Master Mintam calmly explained, "Because we often cling to impermanent things. We view our loved ones as our own, wanting to keep them by our side forever. But life is impermanent. Nothing lasts forever. Flowers bloom and wither, the moon waxes and wanes. People too follow the natural law of birth, aging, sickness, and death." The disciples listened in silence, the Master's words sinking deep into their hearts. Master Mintam continued, "Look at the river. Its water flows continuously, never stopping. If we try to hold on to a stream of water, we only end up with disappointment and sorrow. Similarly, if we cling to the past and what has been lost, we will never find peace." Another disciple asked, "Master, what should we do to overcome the pain of separation?" Master Mintam replied, "Learn to let go. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting, but accepting the truth and allowing the past to rest. Cherish each present moment. Spend time with those you love. And when the time comes to part, bid them farewell with love and gratitude." The disciples nodded, their eyes bright with hope. Master Mintam looked at them with affectionate eyes. "Remember, happiness is not about having wealth or fame. True happiness comes from a heart that knows love and letting go. When we learn to release our attachments, we will find true peace and freedom." The story ended, but Master Mintam's teachings echoed in the minds of his disciples. They understood that life is a journey of impermanence, and only by letting go of attachments can one find true happiness.
If you like this video, please comment 1. And if you don't, comment 2. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time.
20. A Mother's Letter, July, Saturday the 1st. Dear Enrico, the school year has come to an end, and soon you'll be saying goodbye to your teacher and friends. Unfortunately, this farewell won't be just for 2.5 months, but for a lifetime. Your father's job requires us to leave Turin, and naturally, our family must go with him. This fall, we'll be moving to a new city, and you'll attend a new school. I know this news makes you sad. I'm sure you have fond memories of your old school, where you've spent 4 years diligently working every day, twice a day. There, you saw your teacher, your friends, and your parents waiting to pick you up. You will miss the school where your mind was nourished, where you made good friends, and where every word spoken was for your benefit. Take these memories with you and say goodbye to your friends with genuine warmth and sincerity. In the future, some of your friends may face hardships, losing a parent early, or meeting untimely deaths. Some may become brave soldiers on the battlefield, but most will become honest, hard-working individuals, dedicated parents, and possibly even prominent figures who contribute to society. Bid your friends farewell with love and affection, leaving a piece of your heart in the place that watched you grow from a child into a young adult. This place will always hold a special place in my heart because it is where you were cherished and loved by everyone. Enrico, a school is like a mother. It took you from my arms when you were still learning to speak and will return to me a healthy, kind, and diligent child. May God bless this nurturing mother. Never forget this benefactor, my dear. As you grow up and travel the world, seeing magnificent cities and grand castles, always remember the modest white schoolhouse with closed shutters and a green garden, where the first blossoms of your intellect bloomed. I believe that the image of your old school will remain in your memory until your last breath, just as I can never forget the sight of the house where I first heard your voice. Your loving mother. 21. The Letter from Father. This morning, Miss Den came to visit, and my father noticed that I had spoken disrespectfully to my mother. In response, he wrote me the following heartfelt letter. Enrico, in front of your teacher, you showed disrespect towards your mother. You must never do this again. Your rudeness pierced my heart like a dagger. I remember a few years ago when your mother stayed up all night by your bedside, listening to your breath, worrying herself sick and crying at the thought of losing you. You should think of those moments and not treat your mother poorly. A mother would trade a year of her happiness to take away an hour of your pain. She would beg on the streets to provide for you and sacrifice her life to save yours. Enrico, in your life, you will face sad and difficult days, but the saddest day will be when you lose your mother. As you grow up and face life's challenges, you will become strong, but you will never forget your mother's image. You will long to hear her gentle voice and see her kind face again. No matter how big and strong you get, you will still feel like a lost and weak child. You will remember the times you hurt your mother, and regret will gnaw at you. Her gentle and loving image will make you even more sorrowful. Remember that filial piety is a sacred duty of every person. Those who trample on this duty are despicable. Even a murderer who respects his parents has some good in him. A person, no matter how successful, who causes his mother grief is lacking in character. Enrico, go to your mother and ask her to kiss you. Let that kiss erase the mark of ingratitude from your forehead. My love for you remains, for you are my greatest hope, but I would rather have no son at all than one who treats his mother poorly. 22. The Bathroom Banquet. She was a housekeeper for a wealthy man in his 50s. After finishing her work at night, she would rush home to her tiny, run-down house where her 5-year-old son eagerly awaited her return. One night, her employer hosted a grand evening party with many guests. He asked her, "Today is a busy day. Can you stay later?" She replied, "I can, but my young son will be scared alone at home in the dark." The employer kindly suggested, "Bring him with you then." She brought her son along, telling him on the way, "You get to go to an evening party tonight." The little boy was excited, not understanding what his mother's job as a housekeeper really entailed. She didn't want his young mind to grasp the stark differences between the rich and the poor just yet. She quietly bought 2 sausages. As more guests arrived, the house became bustling with people, all elegantly dressed, mingling in the grand, spacious home. She was too busy to keep an eye on her scruffy-looking son and worried that his presence might spoil the party. Finally, she found a solution. She led him to the guest bathroom, a quiet place unlikely to be used that night. Placing the sausages on a fine porcelain plate, she cheerfully said, "This is your own special room. The evening party starts now." She instructed him to stay put until she came to get him. The boy looked around at his special room, which was immaculately clean and beautifully decorated, unlike anything he had ever seen. He was thrilled, sat on the floor, and began to eat the sausages placed on the stone countertop with a mirror above it. He even started to hum a tune, feeling happy for himself. As the evening progressed, the host remembered the housekeeper's son and asked her about him in the kitchen. She stammered, "I don't know where he's run off to." The host, sensing something unsaid, quietly went searching. Hearing a child singing in the bathroom, he opened the door and was taken aback. "Why are you hiding here? Do you know what this place is?" The boy cheerfully replied, "This is the room the host made for me to attend the evening party, but I wish someone could join me here to eat." The host felt a sting of emotion, holding back tears as he understood everything. He gently said, "Wait here for me." Returning to the main party, he told the guests to enjoy themselves while he attended to a special guest. He placed some food on a large plate and took it to the bathroom. Knocking politely, he entered when the boy opened the door and said, "Let's have our party in this wonderful room together." The boy was overjoyed. They sat on the floor, eating and chatting happily, even singing songs together. Soon, the other guests learned of this. Many came by the bathroom, politely knocking, greeting the two warmly and wishing them a good meal. Some even joined them on the floor, singing children's songs in a genuine and heartfelt manner. Years passed, and the boy grew up to be very successful, rising to the upper echelons of society. Yet, he never forgot to help the hard-working poor. One significant value had shaped his character: the deep compassion and respect the kind-hearted host had shown to a 5-year-old boy all those years ago. 23. The Blind Bird or Misunderstood. In the garden of a writer's house, there stood a lush, evergreen banyan tree. From his writing room through a glass door, he could see this tree. His routine was to wake up early every morning to write, and to his amazement he noticed that for a period, a bird would fly into his glass door every day. Day after day, the same thing happened, and he began to wonder, was the bird blind, or did it suffer from some other condition? Unsatisfied with this explanation, many days continued to pass. Then one day he decided to step out of his room, stand on the bird's side of the glass, and look into his room. He couldn't believe his eyes. Before him was a breathtaking sight. The banyan tree's lush green reflection shimmered on the glass, appearing as though it was in some distant, more expansive space. And he realized that the little bird had grown bored with its familiar tree and had discovered this new banyan tree. It had flown into the glass, hoping to reach a more beautiful, shimmering place. This story made me reflect on a few things. Sometimes we don't understand others because we don't see things from their perspective. And sometimes we fail to recognize that what we already have is what's truly important and our real source of happiness, while we keep chasing after distant dreams. But perhaps only in our illusions can we find happiness, because reality often falls short of our expectations, forcing us to escape it. 24. The frying pan. Two friends went fishing together. One of them, whenever he caught a fish, would immediately put it in his ice chest to keep it fresh. The other, however, would throw every big fish he caught back into the river. The first man was puzzled and asked, "Why do you keep throwing the big fish back into the river?" The second man replied, "Because I only have a small frying pan at home." This story could easily be a joke, but in reality, many of us act the same way. We give up on our big plans, dreams, and opportunities because our beliefs are too small. We laugh at the fisherman for not buying a bigger pan, but are we willing to expand our beliefs to pursue our own dreams? 25. Adaptation. Once upon a time, a frog was placed into a pot of cold water. The pot was left uncovered and then placed on a stove. Initially, the water was still cold, so the frog didn't react at all. Gradually, the water started to warm up, but the frog didn't notice. Why? Because the temperature of the water increased so slowly that the frog got used to it. As time went on, the temperature continued to rise, but the frog still didn't notice because the change was so gradual. When the water finally reached a boil, the frog began to feel uncomfortable, but by then, it was too late. The frog had been boiled alive. This is a classic story about change. The water heated up so gradually that the frog didn't notice, and ultimately it met its demise in the boiling water. If the frog had been placed into the pot when the water was already hot and the pot was still uncovered, it would have likely tried to jump out immediately. Human life is similar. We get accustomed to our daily routines and often resist or fear change, afraid to embrace the new. However, our lives are constantly changing, and if we don't pay attention, it might become too late. When faced with a significant change, we often panic and feel scared. Can we handle the change when it comes? Can we accept it? Or will it be too late by then? Always be prepared for change. Observe carefully everything happening around you. Face and accept the changes happening so you can adapt accordingly. 26. The one-string violin. Niccolò Paganini, a renowned and talented violinist of the 19th century, stood before a packed concert hall performing a challenging piece. A full orchestra surrounded him, playing in harmony. Suddenly, one of his violin strings snapped, dangling below the fingerboard. Sweat dripped from his brow. Despite his anxiety, Paganini continued to play, improvising skillfully. To everyone's astonishment, a second string broke, followed shortly by a third. Now, With 3 broken strings swaying from Paganini's violin, the masterful artist reached the climax of the piece with just 1 string left. The audience tapped their feet, and the grand hall was filled with enthusiastic applause. As the ovation subsided, Paganini gestured for everyone to sit down. Although the audience knew it was impossible for him to play the remainder of the piece, they quietly returned to their seats. He raised his violin high for all to see. Nodding to the conductor to start again, he turned to the crowd. With a twinkle in his eye, he smiled and declared loudly, "This is Paganini on 1 string." Then, placing the single-stringed Stradivarius under his chin, he played the final part of the piece with only 1 string. The audience shook their heads in utter amazement. Our lives are often filled with troubles, worries, disappointments, and inconveniences. Honestly, we spend most of our time focusing on and fretting over the broken, incomplete, and unexpected aspects of life, all of which are beyond our control. Are you still mourning the broken strings in your life? Do you feel that with just 1 string left, your melody will be out of tune? If so, may I suggest that you not lose heart, but continue and begin to play again with just 1 string. Let it sing a sweet melody that the whole world yearns for, full of improvisation. You can do it if you want to. If you find these stories inspiring and they motivate you to take action, please comment 9. If not, comment 0. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time. 27. Let life teach you. Once upon a time, in a small pond, there lived a group of water fleas. Every day, they would climb up the stalks of tall grasses to bask in the sunlight. From time to time, a strange object would swoop down near them, causing them to quickly dive back into the water. Once the object flew away, they would climb back up again. They often wondered, "What is that thing?" One little flea mused, "If only I could fly, then I would know what it is and also see what life is like out there." One day, one of the water fleas managed to climb to the top of a tall grass stalk and stayed there for a long time. Gradually, its body began to change. It donned a splendid multicolored coat, and delicate crystal-like wings sprouted from its back. The water flea had transformed into a beautiful dragonfly. Gently flapping its wings, it soared into the sky, joyfully dancing in the sunlight. Suddenly, remembering its promise, the dragonfly decided to return to find its old friends and tell them about its adventure. It swooped down to the water's surface, but no matter how hard it tried, it couldn't get close to its friends. It was no longer a water flea. And the water fleas, as usual, were terrified and hid when they saw the dragonfly approaching. The dragonfly thought to itself, "What can I do? I've done my best to keep my promise, but even with my bright new wings, I can't get them to understand. They will have to wait until they too climb to the top of the grass stalk to discover where I've gone and what I've become." People who think differently, who surpass others, or who have more experience are often not accepted or are misunderstood. So if you find yourself in such a situation, let life be their teacher. 28. If and then. If the sky seems covered with gray clouds and you venture out into the rain, if you're hoping to see a bright rainbow, but its colors only bring you sorrow. If the world keeps turning and you have to reach the end. If you're searching for sunlight but all you see is pitch-black darkness. If everyone around you seems filled with joy but all you feel is sadness. If you're utterly exhausted and life keeps knocking you down. If you cry, then remember that your tears have created something magical, the beauty of flowers, tender in your hands. Then take in the scent of freshly cut grass around you. Then laugh and play with children, absorbing their innocence as they giggle. Then imagine yourself flying with a delicate butterfly in a colorful forest. Then listen to the whispers of the ocean and let the warm summer breeze caress your skin. Then, savor a piece of candy, feeling the sweet memories of childhood dance on your tongue. Then listen to the clear melodies of birds welcoming a new day. Then recall the overwhelming tenderness of your mother's gentle kiss as she held you close and whispered boundless love. Strive to find the good things in life. Look up at the colorful clouds above instead of the dark earth beneath your feet. Life doesn't grant us favors. We grant life gifts through our positive actions and thoughts. Start today, right this moment, because life itself is a joy, the greatest gift that nature has given you. 29. My father. I was 16 at the time. One morning, my father asked me to drive him to the remote village of Majar, 18 miles from our home, and then take the car to a nearby garage for repairs. Since I had just started learning to drive and saw this as a great opportunity to practice, I eagerly agreed. I drove my father to the village and promised to pick him up at 4 p.m. After dropping him off, I took the car to the garage. Knowing it would take a few hours to wait, I decided to buy a ticket for a movie across the street. Engrossed in the film, I lost track of time, and when I finally glanced at my watch, it was already 6 p.m. I knew my father would be angry when he found out I had gone to the movies and might never let me drive again, so I quickly thought up a few extra car issues to explain my lateness. I drove to the meeting spot and saw my father patiently waiting on the corner. I apologized for being late and told him that I had tried my best to be on time, but the car needed additional repairs. I'll never forget the look he gave me then. "Jason, I'm very disappointed that you had to lie to me." "What do you mean, Dad? That's the truth." He looked back at me. "When you didn't arrive on time, I called the garage to see if there was a problem, and they told me you hadn't picked up the car yet." Guilt washed over me, and I confessed to my father the real reason for my tardiness. "My anger isn't with you, but with myself," he said. "I realize now that I haven't been a good father. After all these years, you still feel the need to lie to me. It's heartbreaking to raise a son who can't even be honest with his own father. I'm going to walk home now and think about what I've done wrong all these years." "But Dad, it's 18 miles to get home. It's already dark. You can't walk that far." All my protests and apologies were useless. I had let my father down, and I learned the hardest lesson of my life. My father started walking down the dark, dusty road. I slowly drove behind him, pleading for forgiveness the entire way, but he continued his silent, contemplative stride. The image of my father walking, weary and pained, is a memory I will never forget. Yet it was the most meaningful lesson, as I never lied to him again after that. 30. Patriotism. The topic for your essay this morning was, "Why do you love your country?" I'm sure you were deeply moved by the story of the little drummer boy we discussed the other day, and I know you must have done well on your essay. Why do you love your country? Doesn't that question bring countless answers to mind? I love my country because my mother grew up here, because the blood in my veins is from this land, because the sacred ground here holds the graves of those my mother loved and my father respected, because it's the land where I was born, the language I speak, the books I study, my siblings, my friends, and a great nation that lives alongside me, and the beautiful nature that surrounds me. In short, everything I see, everything I cherish, belongs to my country. Right now, you're still young, and you might not fully understand what it means to love your country. But you will. When you travel far from home and one morning you see the familiar mountains of your homeland on the horizon, you will feel a rush of emotion and tears of joy will fill your eyes. You will feel patriotism when you are abroad and suddenly hear someone speaking your language. Your heart will urge you to approach and talk to that stranger. You will feel patriotism when you hear foreigners speak ill of your country. Your anger will make your face flush with pride and indignation. You will feel patriotism even more strongly and nobly if one day our homeland is unjustly invaded. You will see fathers kissing their sons and urging them to be brave, mothers sending their children off with the hope of victory. You will feel patriotism when you see weary soldiers returning, singing songs of triumph. You will feel patriotism when you see our national flag, torn but flying high at the front of a brave band of soldiers, each one displaying wounds with pride in the midst of a jubilant crowd throwing flowers and cheering with joy. Enrico, my dear son, now you understand what patriotism is. It is something grand and sacred. If one day you come back safely from the battlefield, but I learn that you hid to avoid death, I won't greet you with the same joyful laughter I do now when you return from school. Instead, I will greet you with bitter tears. I will no longer be able to love you, and I would rather die of heartbreak. 31. Is there a dragonfly on your shoulder? In a quiet, charming small town, there lived two people deeply in love. Every morning they would walk to the beach to watch the sunrise, and every evening they would bid farewell to the setting sun on the sandy shore. Everyone who saw this couple admired them greatly. One day, a terrible car accident occurred. The girl was critically injured and lay motionless in a hospital bed, days and nights passing without her regaining consciousness. Every morning, the young man sat by her bedside, desperately calling her name, while at night he would kneel in the town's small chapel looking up to God, his eyes dry from all the tears he'd shed. A month went by, and the girl remained unconscious. The young man's heart had long been shattered, but he still clung to hope and prayed fervently. Finally, one day, God took pity on him. God offered the young man a chance. He asked, "Are you willing to exchange your life for hers?" Without hesitation, the young man replied, "I am willing." God continued, "I can wake your beloved, but you must become a dragonfly for 3 years. Do you agree?" The young man immediately responded, "I agree." That morning, the dragonfly left God and hurried to the hospital, just as it did every morning. And the girl woke up. A dragonfly is not a person. It couldn't hear what the girl said to the doctor standing by her bed. When the girl left the hospital, she was deeply saddened. She searched everywhere for her lover, but no one knew where he had gone. She searched for a long time, with the dragonfly always by her side, fluttering around her. But a dragonfly is not a person, and it couldn't speak. It was her lover, right before her eyes, but she didn't recognize him. Summer passed. Then autumn came. The cold winds blew the leaves from the trees, and the dragonfly had to leave. Its final resting place was on the girl's shoulder. "I want to use my fragile wings to caress your face, to kiss your forehead with my dry lips," he thought. But the light, delicate body of the dragonfly went unnoticed by the girl. In the blink of an eye, spring arrived. The dragonfly hurried back to the town to find his beloved. But now she was leaning against a strong, handsome young man. The dragonfly's heart broke as it fell from the sky. Everyone knew how severe the girl's condition had been after the accident, how kind and loving the doctor was, how naturally their love had blossomed, and how the girl had become happy again. The dragonfly, in immense pain, watched as the doctor took the girl to watch the sunrise by the sea in the morning and the sunset in the evening. All it could do was occasionally land on her shoulder, unable to do more. The sweet whispers and joyful laughter of the girl suffocated the dragonfly. By the 3rd summer, the dragonfly had stopped visiting the girl as often. Her shoulder was always held tightly by the doctor, her face often kissed tenderly by him. She had no time for a sorrowful dragonfly, no time to look back at the past. 3 years of God's deal were almost up. On the last day, the dragonfly's former love walked down the aisle with the doctor. The dragonfly quietly flew into the church, landing on the shoulder of his beloved. He knew she was kneeling before God saying, "I do." He saw the doctor slip a ring onto her finger. They kissed passionately. The dragonfly shed a tear of agony. God asked, "Do you regret it?" The dragonfly wiped away the tear and said, "I do not." God was pleased and said, "Then, from tomorrow, you can be human again." The dragonfly looked into the tear and shook his head. "Let me remain a dragonfly forever," he replied. 32. The story of a frog. A group of frogs was hopping through a forest when two of them fell into a deep pit. Seeing how deep the pit was, the other frogs told the two frogs that they were as good as dead. Ignoring the comments, the two frogs tried their best to jump out of the pit. The group of frogs continued to shout at them to give up and accept their fate. Eventually, one of the frogs listened to the others, gave up, and died from exhaustion and despair. The other frog, however, continued to jump with all its might. The group of frogs at the top kept yelling at it to stop and accept its inevitable death. But the frog kept jumping harder and harder, and miraculously, it finally managed to escape from the pit. The group of frogs gathered around, puzzled and surprised, asking, "Didn't you hear us?" It was then revealed by an old frog that the frog that escaped was deaf. It thought the others were cheering it on the whole time. 33. Sense of memory. 1. It seems like everyone has a favorite scent that holds special memories. I, for example, love the smell of kerosene stoves. I can't forget the indescribable feeling I had when I first arrived at my college dorm and caught a whiff of kerosene. I wondered why it affected me so. It wasn't hard to find the answer. When I was little, my mom cooked on a kerosene stove in our tiny apartment. Despite placing the stove near the door, the smell lingered inside, and that scent became comforting to me. 2. A friend of mine loves the smell of gasoline, a scent that most find unpleasant. Her father was a truck driver and often went on long trips. When he came back, he would let her sit in the cab with him, and the smell of gasoline became associated with those cherished moments. 3. In the movie 50 First Dates, Lucy Whitmore touched Henry Roth's heart when she said she loved the scent of the ocean on him. She carefully kissed his hands and said it was the most pleasant smell in the world. This was because her father and brother, who frequently went on sea trips, would return home with the salty sea scent, a comforting reminder of their presence. Some might think this detail in the script is exaggerated, but I believe the filmmakers had a good reason to include it. 4. Now I've moved next to a rather unpleasant neighbor who constantly yells at her husband and children and argues with the neighbors. Despite this, I find a reason not to be too annoyed with her. She has a garden full of night-blooming jasmine. Every early morning and evening, the sweet and gentle fragrance fills the air. Especially after a rain, the scent is even more delightful. Sometimes, it distracts me from my reading. This scent reminds me of summers spent with my grandmother, who also had a jasmine garden. We would pick the flowers and leaves to make crab soup. The sweet scent and flavor have stayed with me for years, and now it makes it hard for me to dislike my quirky neighbor.
If you like this video, please comment 1. And if you don't, comment 2. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time.